Do you like graphically impressive Metroidvania-esque 2D action platformers? How about gameplay that's deeper than a couple transformations and abilities deserve to be? Then you might just enjoy playing Demon's Crest. Demon's Crest is actually the fourth game to feature the Firebrand character. His first appearance was as one of the enemies in Ghosts and Goblins. While I did play Ghosts and Goblins, I believe I played Gargoyle's Quest for the Game Boy first. This was one of the Game Boy's best games in my opinion. It was a fun action RPG with a large overworld and story. He was also in Gargoyle's Quest 2, which I believe was on the Game Boy and the NES. I'd say the closest game in terms of game feel to Demon's Crest would be Mega Man X. Both games let you tackle different stages in your choice of order. Both games have bosses that drop different abilities for you to use and which are stronger against certain bosses. And it makes sense since Capcom made the Mega Man series as well. Demon's Crest has a bit more RPG elements. There's an overworld of sorts. There's some exploration. There's a town. So it's kinda like Mega Man X with a dusting of Zelda. You don't have as much freedom as you do in Mega Man X. While you do have options, the game unlocks more areas as you make progress, probably to prevent you from getting some powerful abilities a little too soon. But the game is not very long. If you know what you're doing, you could easily get every item and ability and beat the game in under 3 hours. But there is replay value. I have tried to play through the game a little differently each time to see if I could find a path that works best, but I'm not sure there is one. Most of the bosses are pretty easy if you use the right ability and understand their pattern. I would say one of the harder bosses is the Graveyard Skeleton guy. You are meant to face him earlier in the game and you probably won't have much health. His attacks can be hard to avoid, but it's not too bad if you follow my strategy. Getting the air gargoyle or the tornado platform ability before this can make avoiding him a little easier, but he is weak to the ground gargoyle. Other than Bone Saw over here.
Big Brick Joe! You're going nowhere!
The wolf guy has a difficult pattern to get a hang of and does tons of damage. He drops Demon Fire, which is the second strongest attack in the game, though the game says it's the strongest, it's not. Maybe if they mean literal fire, of which there is the attack you start with and then Demon Fire, in that case, yes. But I tested it and the legendary gargoyle's attack is significantly stronger and moreover it's easier to get. So while you can, and I have, defeat the wolf boss before getting the legendary gargoyle, you take massive damage for every hit and it takes a good 20 hits or so to beat him. With the legendary gargoyle you get the most powerful attack in the game and about 4x the damage resistance because it reduces damages, and on the way to getting it you can get the armor talisman, which also grants damage resistance, and it stacks with the legendary gargoyle. So no reason to torture yourself getting Demon Fire first. Unfortunately, this gives Demon Fire very little utility. In fact, I would only use it on the 2 areas where you need to light candles to avoid being attacked. There are 2 more abilities that are nearly useless. Claw, I believe it's called. You fire it against a spiked wall and it allows you to hang on to that spot and climb up, and Tornado, which creates a platform allowing you to jump higher. Both of these are rendered obsolete by the air gargoyle, and you can get the air gargoyle before either one of these. The air gargoyle is probably my favorite. You can fly vertical and it has strong attack too. Some bosses are weak to it, but the rest are immune. This was done probably to avoid trivializing some of the boss fights, but most of them remain easy either way. The eyeball guy is interesting. This is maybe the one time that the imp spell is useful. It does a great job wiping out the little eyes. If you want to make it a little easier still, then come back with the air gargoyle, as it does more damage and makes maneuvering around him easier. The flying bug guy is tough if you don't have the air gargoyle, but easy if you do. The air gargoyle does way more damage and he is infinitely easier to avoid. You fight General Arma 3 times. He drops the Earth Crest, Air Crest, and Time Crest. Time Crest gives you the legendary gargoyle. He gets a little harder each time, but his patterns are still easy to deal with. The fire guy is kind of a fun fight and is weak to the earth gargoyle. Crawler is kind of a joke, just shoot his eye when it opens. The snail guy, well, I just keep hitting him and healing myself. If you try to avoid the obstacles, then it's a little tougher. As for this crab duo, I recommend killing the small one first, otherwise its pattern becomes very difficult to deal with. Then we have Phalanx, the main villain. He's actually pretty easy too, well, as long as you have the legendary gargoyle. If you get all the items, he has a third phase where he becomes actually quite hard. You have no stable footing, and there are enemies constantly shooting at you. Make sure you stock up on ginseng potions before taking him on. After you beat him, the game gives you a code. When you use it, it starts you with all the items and abilities, and one new one, the ultimate gargoyle. The ultimate gargoyle is a little disappointing. He is a palette swap of the legendary gargoyle. But he can use the earth gargoyle's dash, he can fly vertical like the air gargoyle. If you hold up or jump, you can headbutt like your base form and legendary gargoyle. You can swim like the tidal gargoyle. Capcom also cheaped out here by not giving him the same swimming animation as the tidal gargoyle. I guess they didn't want to create more sprites. But as a result, he has a larger vertical profile while swimming, which makes it harder to avoid obstacles. So in the main swimming stage, I recommend still using the tidal gargoyle, just until you get to the boss. The ultimate gargoyle also has better damage resistance than the legendary, however the attack does the same damage. Again, I tested it. Also, it's a minor gripe, but I prefer the legendary gargoyle's attack because it breaks open pots from a standing position. I think it looks cooler too. So that's the ultimate gargoyle. Go ahead and play some of the stages again to see how much stronger you are. Then when you are ready, stock up on ginseng potions. The final boss is in a new area that was unlocked by the password. This boss is a monster. Nowhere is safe, there are enemies following you around, rocks falling, projectiles shooting at you from all over the place. It's not easy, and it's not fun either. Actually, I can't beat this guy. Probably if I keep trying, but it's just not fun to do so, and since I have everything at this point, there is not much incentive. I looked up the ending and it's almost the same with different text. Well, this has been a fun game to play again. I had some trouble at first, but found myself playing through it again and again. I think pretty much everything is top-notch except for the music, which doesn't really do it for me, but it does fit with the gothic aesthetic. There was obviously some love put into this game. Utilizing the base form, earth form and air form is a lot of fun, and so is letting loose when you get the legendary gargoyle. I wish the game was longer, and that every ability was useful. Most of the spells are either bugged or not very good. Imp is useful once, and Death is the only other worth getting, as it kills all enemies on screen and also hurts bosses, except for the final 2 hidden bosses. As for the potions, really just herb and ginseng. I use herb until my life bar gets bigger, then move on to ginseng. I don't know why they stopped making more games in this series, maybe it didn't sell well. But I think it's one of the best games on the Super Nintendo.